Hey guys, today I want to share with you my 5 favorite tips to loosen up your low back. If you're feeling stiff or tight or just uncomfortable in your low back, these are my go-to moves that can be done quickly anytime during the day to help release any tension or anything that feels uncomfortable in your low back. First, we're going to start with standing. This is something I notice a lot standing in line at the grocery store, standing doing dishes, anything that you're doing in your daily life where you're starting to feel pressure on your low back. Check in with your posture. We want to check in and make sure that we have lots of length in the spine. In my own body, I tend to let my pelvis tip forward, and you can see the wrinkles on my shirt where it's really shortening the low back. In your own body, you might slide your pelvis back and kind of slouch and curl your tailbone under. So you can kind of check in your own body, see what's going on. Either way, the idea is to keep your pelvis level, so the hip bones, these hip bones here are shining straight forward. And then I also think about my pubic bone, which is at the base of your pelvis, right? Internally, I think about a diagonal line being drawn up to my low back. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So if I'm standing here doing dishes or standing in line, I'm locking out my knees and I'm dipping my pelvis forward. I think about that pubic bone coming up and back at a diagonal. And you'll notice that it's not a great big change, but you can see everything line up. And I immediately feel my deep abdomen activate and my low back elongate. I do this on hiking also. If I start to feel kind of like it's pounding through the low back, I find that connection drawing the pubic bone up and back at a diagonal. And guess what, Wunda Mamas? That's a beautiful tip for you when you have the weight of the baby drawing forward. Okay, so that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, if you find yourself seated in a chair a lot, I highly recommend that you grab a lumbar supporter. This is literally from the 99-cent store. So you can pick one up for a very inexpensive price. There's nothing fancy about it, but what it does is it gives you a reminder when you're seated to sit upright and find that alignment in your body rather than worrying about slouching back so much in your chair. So that's going to relieve tension. You can also use this when you are on the mat, or we even have them in a lot of the studios, where it can give you feedback for what a neutral pelvis is. So the wide part is going down towards my hips, the narrow part is up towards the shoulders, and you can literally lay down on this back supporter. It's not just for your chair. And you can see from the profile that it allows for some space underneath my low back and the floor, elongating the spine, getting my hip bones shining straight forward. And then I can do any of the work that we do together on the mat or in studio, and this little supporter gives me feedback of how not to mash my low back down into the mat while we're working. So that's number 2. All right, so if you can grab one of these, it's a great choice. Number 3, while we're here on the floor, you can go into a cat-cow. I know it sounds simple, you guys, but it's really effective to open up your back. A lot of times if I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling stiff, I kind of slept funny, this is a great, quick way to loosen things up. So a few things to think about here. We start in our 4-point kneeling position. I like to really think about articulating the spine. So I nod the chin first, then I round the upper back, then I lift from under the ribs, rounding, and then last, the tailbone melts down into a deep, deep curl at the top. Then I'm going to unwind. I'm going to start unwinding in symmetry from the base of the spine all the way through the crown of the head to arc and really open forward, but I'm not allowing the abdomen to spill and I'm maintaining lots of length. So we're articulating, really opening space through the spine. I like an exhale here as a round, and then I think an inhale is a really beautiful choice here, opening through the collarbone. So that's a really nice way to use breath. If you do that maybe 3 or 4 times, if you are feeling stiff, just tighten the shoulders or the low back, okay? Number 4, I'm going to grab a 5-inch playground ball. You might have one of these in your kid's toy chest. You don't have to buy anything special, but what this does is it's gonna lift my sacrum, which is at the center of the pelvis on the back side, off the floor so that I can mobilize each side of the pelvis, okay? So I'm gonna literally place this ball, I'm gonna give you a little rear view, right above the CRACK. You know I'm not gonna say it. So it's right above your CRACK when you lay down. So lay down on your back. Your feet are 4 inches apart parallel. The ball goes under the sacrum, and you can take a minute to find where is comfortable for your body. And you want to feel this sensation that your pelvis is draping over the ball. You want to feel openness and length. Already it feels so divine. Then you can imagine that your navel is 12 o'clock, your pubic bone is 6 o'clock, and then your left hip would be 3 o'clock, your right hip would be 9 o'clock. And you can roll through those points on the clock, so kind of tip to the left, tip down towards the pubic bone, tip towards the right, roll under a bit to tip to the navel. You can go counterclockwise, and that's really going to help mobilize the pelvis and open up tension in the low back. So that's number 4. The last tip is going to be what we call stir the pot. This is a stretch that you might have done with us in class a lot of times. You can do it at home too, anywhere you have room on the floor, okay? So we're going to take our knees bent, lay down on your mat or just on the floor, and you're gonna hug them close to your chest. It doesn't have to be super tight and crowded. The idea is we're really adding space to the back, releasing the spine, and then keeping the knees sort of close together. Don't overthink it. We're just circling the femur head, circling the thigh bones through the hip sockets, and you'll notice I'm rocking side to side on the pelvis. So really opening up through the low back. You can change direction of that pot stirring, and it just is a really nice way to release tension. I just got a couple little cricks and cracks in my back. It's a really nice way to release tension in your own body and open up your low back. So you can try one of those, 2 of those, all 5 of those. But either way, I hope they help your body in your home or in studio.